The same as usual.
Yeah, I know. I asked the same questions. Today, it's raining here a lot. So
Oh, really?
I was thinking about you saying how there's no typhoon, but here it seems like we have a typhoon today. Yeah,
Maybe move to your place.
I know. It's kind of crazy. I mean, it was raining pretty heavy, I think, all night, and now it's getting a little bit calmer. Yeah. If it was a little bit colder, it would be snow. So I'm really happy that it's not snow. Yeah, awesome. Hey, Servet. Hoş geldiniz.
Hey,
Nasılsınız?
teşekkürler, iyiyiz, ya siz?
İyiyim, teşekkürler abi.
This is nice. It is good to hear Turkish. You are the only person, only foreign person speaking Turkish, specifically a Western American.
Uh-huh. I know. I like to. I love Turkish. Çok seviyorum. Türkçe çok seviyorum. Türkçe çok seviyorum. Aha.
Türkçeyi çok seviyorum.
Türkçeyi çok seviyorum. Evet, evet. Aa, orada nasıl gidiyor?
İyi gidiyor. Biraz yorgunuz ama senin dersini kaçırmak istemedim.
I don't know that last part.
I I said just a little bit tired maybe, but I didn't want to miss your class.
Welcome. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, sir. I heard about the new tunnel, Marmaray Tunnel, that is now
Ah,
connecting Istanbul. Yeah.
yes, I guess they've been building it for a long time.
Uh-huh.
Probably. I haven't read about it.
Yeah. It looks very exciting. I mean, now I think they
Yeah.
reduced the travel time between two parts of Istanbul from 120 minutes or 2 hours or something like that to just 15 minutes.
Yes, it's connecting the two continents.
Yeah,
Uh,
Europe and Asia.
Europe and Asia is pretty good because we have two bridges and they are really crowded.
Hmm.
Gets really crowded.
Absolutely,
Hopefully,
yeah. So, yes. Hopefully this one will. Do you think this will reduce the traffic, Sarah?
of course it will, uh, because two bridges aren't enough and a new route. They're also they were also talking about building a third bridge. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's a crowded route, it's a common route. A lot of people travel from one continent to another
Yeah.
daily. Some people go to travel, so they needed to do it.
I remember when I was there, we had to wait. We took a ferry from
Mhm.
Istanbul to Bursa, but
Yes,
Yeni Kapı feribot istasyonu.
yes,
Yeah, and Ido I think is the name of the
yes.
service. But it was luxurious. I loved the ferry. Had I known about the ferry before I arrived to Istanbul, I would have definitely just always taken the ferry. But because I didn't know about it, the first time I took a bus, and it was a
Yes.
nightmare. It was 7 hours to go
Oh,
from Istanbul to Bursa. I mean, I was on the bus for it felt like a millennium. It felt so long on the bus, and I didn't know any Turkish. That was my first day in Turkey, my very first day. So I was on this bus, and nobody knew English. So I was trying to speak very basic Turkish and telling people where I needed to go. But I mean, I saw the countryside. I saw
hmm,
Izmit and other cities
yeah.
on my way to Bursa. But anyway, it's good to see you again, Sarah. Welcome to
Yes,
class.
thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, Eugenie, you're here too. Welcome back.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. So today, guys, we have an interesting class planned, right? I like the classes in which we talk about reported speech. Okay, reported speech is going to be the theme of our conversation today. And the way we use reported speech in English, right? The way I like to think of it is imagine you're watching a news report on TV, or imagine you're reading a newspaper, right? whenever we read the news, we hear about what other people say, right? News is really just a combination of information that other people say, right? Hey, Marcelo, welcome. Tudo beleza, professor?
Hello?
Hey, Marcelo, can you hear us?
Yes, I think I was with problems with my connection here.
No problem, no problem. Welcome back. Tudo beleza?
Tudo beleza, tudo bem, graças a Deus.
Gracias a Dios. De
Yeah,
nada,
graças a Deus.
de nada a Dios, de nada a Dios.
Hmm.
Awesome. Well, welcome. So we are just beginning to talk, guys, about reported speech, right? So reported speech in general, when we think of the news is really just a combination of what other people say about different things in life, right? The president says this, the secretary says that, the minister said that, the mother said this, the father said this, whatever, right? So reported speech is used a lot in the news, and it's used a lot in normal conversation also, right? What did your mom tell you? Well, my mom said, make sure you go to sleep by 7 p.m. I don't know, maybe it's a younger child, right? Something like that. So when we see those kinds of situations, right, we can use reported speech to identify what people say about different kinds of plans that they have, or what people tell each other, right? What people say to each other, what people tell each other, right? So I want to start the conversation, guys, by looking at a question, right? Tell me about something that someone recently told you. So
Talking about report speech, my boring neighbor stopped with this bothering song.
Well, that works, right? That works. So my boring neighbor stopped his annoying song. His
Annoying song, yeah.
annoying song, right? But in that example, we're actually not using a reported speech, right? Reported speech, really we say, for example, my mother said to me, turn off that annoying song, right? Or my mother told me to turn off the music, right? So you have to use a word like told or said or, asked, right? Because you have to talk about some part of conversation. You're sharing with somebody else what somebody else said to you, or asked you to do, or something like that, right? So that's how we want to focus our verbs, right? So for example, if somebody asked me, tell me about something that someone told you to do, I could say, well, my mom told me, don't speed when you drive. Fantastic. My mom told me, don't speed when you drive, right? So my mom told me, don't speed when you drive. That's one example, right? That is what we call a direct quote, right? Those are the exact words my mother told me. Don't speed when you drive, right? If I don't want to use the direct words, right, then I can just say, for example, my mom told me to not speed when I drive. Not speed when I drive. This, I am relating the general idea, but I'm not using my mom's exact words, right? So this is, you guys can give me an example like this, right, where somebody told you something and you're telling me what that was. Sounds good?
Yes.
Let's start with Servet then, please.
Okay. Maybe newspaper reporters said to us that new Marmarai tunnel will reduce traffic jam.
Fantastic, fantastic, right? The newspaper reporters told us. So is this a direct quote, Servet, or is this just a general idea? Is it the first type of example, or is it the second type of example in the chat?
Second type.
Absolutely, right? The newspaper reporters said to us that the new Marmarai tunnel will reduce traffic jams, right? Fantastic. We are not using their direct words. We are simply reporting what they said, right? Both of these examples, when you use the quotation marks or when you leave out the quotation marks, both are types of reported speech. but one is direct and one is indirect, right? So, great job, Sarabeth. Let's hear an example from you, Eugenie.
I told myself that I will be work out every day.
Yeah, I told myself that I will work out every day. Right? Fantastic. I told myself I will work out every day. Is this the direct example? Is this an example of a direct reported speech or indirect reported speech? You think it's indirect?
Not direct.
Direct, So then you say, I told myself I will work out every day. So then it would be like this, right? You have to have quotation marks. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Okay. Because these things, when we use these things, right? When we use the quotation marks, that means that we're using direct reported speech, right? Fantastic. Lynn and Maud, welcome to class, guys. You guys both joined pretty soon after each other. How's everything going, Maud? Can you hear us, Maud? Okay, let me write to her real quick. Lynn, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. Lynn, would you like to give us an example of a sentence with reported speech? For example, and the examples in the chat window, my mom told me, my mom asked me to, those kinds of things. Where, give us an example of somebody telling you something.
My friend said my friend told me that I have to send her email tonight.
Fantastic. My friend told me. Did you say told or said, Lynn? I'm sorry.
Told.
Fantastic. My friend told me to send her an email tonight, right? So, Lynn, is this an example of direct reported speech or indirect reported speech? Remember, direct speech has quotation marks, right? Direct means my friend told me, "Hey, Lynn, send me that email tonight." Right? So the exact words that your friend said, that would be direct. Is this a direct or indirect?
Indirect.
Fantastic, right? This is an example of indirect reported speech. Great job. Marcelo, an example from you, please.
Yeah, someone told me that Hyde didn't like me.
Someone told you that Heidi is... Oh, Hyde is like you?
Yeah, no, Hyde, the students that was here with us.
Always
when I come in the class, she left. She came out. You know?
Oh.
And in another class, she told to everybody that she doesn't like Brazilian person.
Oh, really? That's unfortunate.
Yeah. I don't know why, but she told for everybody that was in the class that she doesn't like Brazilian person. You believe in it?
It comes as a surprise for me, honestly, Marcelo. She's never said anything like that to me, so I have no idea.
Yeah.
But, okay, so once again, I'm sorry, what was your example again, Marcelo?
Someone told me that Heidi didn't like me.
Someone told me that Heidi didn't like me, right? Okay. So that also works, right? Is this an example of direct or indirect?
Direct.
Is it direct? Do we have quotation marks?
No, it's indirect.
Fantastic, right? It's an example of indirect, right? So, Marcos Francia, are you in? Welcome to class. Maybe you're watching, Marcos. I'm Farhan. Nice to see you. If you can hear me. Maud, would you please give us an example of another example of reported speech, please? Maud, can you hear us? I don't understand if there's a lag between us and you, Maud. I can't hear anything you're saying, if you're saying anything. Yeah. I hear static, Maud. I hear static, the of the microphone, but I don't hear any voices.
Great.
Hello?
Awesome.
Uh-huh. Yes, I can hear you now, Maud. Please go ahead.
Okay. My boss told me to not chit-chat during the meeting.
My boss told me to not to what, Maud? I'm sorry, what was the last part?
To chit-chat during the meeting. Chit-chat.
To chat during the meeting? Chit-chat.
Yes, chit-chat.
To chit-chat during the meeting. What does it mean to say chit-chat, guys? What does chit-chat mean?
Talk to each other about something.
To talk to each other about something. Right, fantastic, right? To have a conversation, to chit-chat during the class, right? My boss, or during a work or whatever, right? My boss told me not to chit-chat at work or in the meeting, right? Fantastic. Ahmad, would you mind muting your microphone? There's a lot of noise in the back. Thank you so much. So guys, let's take a look then at the different types of reported speech, okay? Well, the first example that we saw, right, is if people have that direct speech, that quotation mark, right? President Obama said, "We will not allow terrorism anywhere in the world." Okay, those are the exact words that he said, using quotation marks, right? And then the other type is when we make it indirect speech, which is the examples that we saw already, right? So the first difference is direct versus indirect speech, right? The second example is when we are talking about, let's say, we can use many types of verbs to use when we are making reported speech, right? We can use many types of verbs. The most common, fantastic Bob, or fantastic Marcelo, fantastic Bob, yeah. Bob said that he was writing a letter, right? So that is an example of, what is that, indirect or direct?
Indirect.
Fantastic, right? Bob said he was writing a letter. If you said, Bob said, "Hey, Brad Pitt, I am writing a letter," right? Then?
So it would be direct.
That is direct, exactly, right? Because you're using the quotation marks. You're saying exactly what he said. So we have used the verbs said, we have used the verbs told many times, right? He said to me, I told her, my mother told me, right? There are many other verbs for reported speech. One of them is, for example, exclaimed, or the verb exclaim in the past tense becomes exclaimed, right? Exclaimed is like when you say something with a lot of energy, like exclaim something to somebody, right? That's one example, right? We can also say asked. Somebody asked me, right? Exclaimed to me. Somebody, for example, exclaimed, asked. What are some other, answered, right? Somebody answered, somebody questioned. He questioned me, why did you go to the party last night, right? He answered, I answered him because I wanted to, right? So exclaimed, asked, answered, questioned. Many types of verbs that are related to speaking, are related to talking about different kinds of things, we can use when we use reported speech, right? So that's one other important thing to know about, right? We also have, for example, we can say sometimes when we use reported speech, we are talking about other people's feelings, or we talk about other people's situations, right? And this is when we have something called a backshift, right? So when we use reported speech, sometimes we change the tense in the part that we are reporting, right? And this is what we call a back clause. So let me give you guys an example of that, right? When we are talking about something that somebody said about somebody, right? So for example, Servet told me that, actually no, I'll change that. Marcelo told me that he felt happy when somebody calls him Brad Pitt. right? Somebody calls him Brad Pitt. So Marcelo told me that he felt happy. You notice how I'm using the word that to connect the two parts of this sentence, right? Marcelo told me, okay, what did he tell me? That he felt happy, right? And that the second verb, felt, I am changing to the simple past, right?
He told you.
Yes.
He told you that he felt happy. Okay.
Exactly, right? Somebody helped me, or somebody told me that I felt whatever. Somebody told me, I'm sorry, not somebody told me that I felt. Somebody told me that he felt, or she felt, or they felt happy, sad, whatever, right? Talking about feelings, we really use the word that, right? And so, for example, but we have to be very careful with how we use this back shift, how we modify that second verb, right? If that second verb is something that happened in the past or something that somebody told you in the past, then make it the past tense. But we don't always have to use it, make it the past tense, right? Depends on the situation. So let's say, Eugenie, let's say you tell me, man, I feel so tired, right? Man, I feel so tired, right? Then if I'm talking to Servet, I could say, you know, Eugenie told me that he feels tired, right? Eugenie told me that he feels tired, right? So it's interesting because in this example, Servet, why do you think we're using feels instead of felt?
Because it's an immediate translation, like conveying you report the speech immediately, so the situation is still the same.
Absolutely.
He still feels tired.
Absolutely, fantastic. The situation is still the same, right? If I was talking about Eugenie a week from now, would I use he still feels tired? No. Probably Eugenie in 1 week will not feel the same tiredness that he feels now, right? So if I'm talking a week from now, I would say, hey Marcelo, you know, Eugenie felt really tired last week. He told me that he felt really tired last week, right? Let's go out for a drink with him, right, or whatever, right? So that's how we use reported speech with a back shift. The back shift is that the part of the phrase that starts with that, right? So could you guys all give me an example of a sentence with a back shift, a sentence in which we say in the middle we say that, right? And then in the second part, so after we say that, depending on the situation, make the verb a simple past or keep it in the, or make it simple past or simple present, right? Depending on the situation. So, Maud, would you mind starting on the right, please?
Well, let me think about it.
Sure, we'll come back to you then if that's okay. Sounds good. Servet, would you mind starting?
Okay, let's say Evgeny said that he hadn't met Lynn maybe before Kolingo.
Eugenie had told, I'm sorry, could you repeat the first part again one more time, please?
Evgeny said that he hadn't met Lynn before Kolingo.
Ah, fantastic. Eugenie said that he hadn't met Lynn before Kolingo. Yeah, fantastic, right? So you have the back shift, and you also have the that. I mean, the that starts the back shift. And why did you decide to use the past tense instead of the present tense, Servet?
Because the original sentence would be like this: I didn't meet Lynn before Kolingo, so
fantastic, right?
Meet will be hadn't.
Yeah, you know, the original phrase was in the past tense, right? So usually you had said to Servet, let's say in this example, I had not met Lynn before, so Servet kept the past tense, right? Fantastic. Eugenie, can you give us an example of another sentence using this back shift? Yes.
May I ask a question? Why can you use past perfect? Oh, not past perfect. Present perfect. I hasn't met Lynn.
You can use present perfect as well. I haven't met Lynn before this class. Or, you know, no. in that example, it's better to say it in the past perfect, right? Because the past perfect, we are talking about experiences that we have had. The present perfect is used when we're talking about experiences that we have or have not had in the past, right? But in this particular example, because you're talking about something that happened that didn't happen in the past, it's better to use the past perfect, right? I hadn't met somebody. I hadn't met you until now. I hadn't met you until this class, right? Haven't would be a little unusual. Haven't would sound a little different because remember when we talk about the past, the present perfect, we are talking about experiences that we have had or have not had in the past, but they usually last more for a longer amount of time. For example, I have lived in Russia, right? Or you can say, you know what? I'm sorry, Eugenie, I think I'm confusing you. You can use the present perfect if you say something like, I have never met Lynn before, I have never met Lynn, something like that, right? Or I have never met Lynn before this class. I think that would work. You can use I had never met Lynn, or I had not met Lynn, or you can say I have never met Lynn before this class. I think that would work as an example. Does that make sense, Eugenie? I know it's kind of a
Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks.
The past tense is a little bit better. The past tense makes more sense. I hadn't met her, but you can use I have never met her before, right? So, Eugenie, give us another example of something that would be related to this back shift. So we have the sentence with a that in the middle.
Okay.
She told me that, I said that, or he told me that, you know, something like that.
Okay. She told me she never she had never driven a sport car.
She told me that she had
That-
never drunk or drank so much.
Drank so much.
Right? So do you want to keep it in the past tense or do you want to keep it in the present tense? For the drink. Is it drink? That she never drinks this much or she never drank this much? It's up to you, honestly, Eugenie. It's up to you because if it's something that has immediately happened, right? She just told you that she never drinks this much. Then you can use drinks, right? You can keep it in the past, you keep it in the present. But let's say she told you 3 days ago at a party that she never drank that much. Then you would use drank, right? So it's up to you which one you want to use.
I don't know how to create original sentence in this case. I had.
So how would the original sentence look? Is that what you want to know, Eugenie? For example, okay, so let me write this down, right? She told me that she never drinks this much. That's the first example, right? The second example would be she told me that she never drank this much, right? Both of them are perfectly fine. Both of them are reported speech, indirect, right? But it just depends if the situation happened recently or is happening right now, or if it's something that's more in the past. That's when we change the drinks or the drink. Right? Does that make sense, Eugenie, or do you have another question about that?
So may I say that I never drink this much.
I never drink this much,
Okay.
You can say that, right? You can say, because when you're using the simple present like that, right? I never drink this much, I never eat this much, right? You are talking about something that is different from your normal behavior. Remember, in the simple present, if I say, I eat a lot of food, if I say that about myself, then that means that generally, that's what I do. That's a general action. That's something that describes me. I eat a lot. But if you say, I never drink this much, wow, now you're saying that this is really a change from what you normally do, right? I never studied this much. You know, maybe it's a big exam. Or I always study a lot, right? That means that that's what you do all the time. right? So you can say something like, I never drank this much. In this particular example, it just depends on the time. If she said that to you recently, you can use the present tense. If she said it a long time ago, or if you're talking about something that's not so recent, then you can use drank. So does that make sense?
Both are correct.
Both are correct.
She told me that she never drinks this much, and she told me that she never drank this much.
Yeah, it just depends on how recently that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She told me that she never drank this much. Maybe something bad happened to her, and she became very sick, and then the doctor wants to know, hey, who are the friends? Maybe the police wants to know, right? This happened 3 weeks ago. You can tell the police, she told me that she never drank this much. I'm sorry, that's what she told me, right? But if it's somebody at the party, man, that girl, she told me she never drinks this much. Same party, same time, right? We can use the present tense. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Lynn, could you give us an example of another sentence using this back shift, using that in the sentence?
My friend told me that she was always happy whenever she took Korean class.
My friend told me that she
was always happy whenever she took Korean class.
Fantastic. My friend told me that she was always happy to take or to attend, to be able to take Colingo classes, right? To be able to take Colingo classes, right? My friend told me that she was always happy to be able to take Colingo classes. Fantastic. Fantastic. You're maintaining it in the past tense. Maybe this happened not recently. Maybe this happened a little bit further in the past, right? So we can use was. Fantastic. Great job. And Marcelo, another example from you, please.
I put an example in the board, and you said something. Mary said that she would stay there waiting for him.
Fantastic, fantastic. Mary said that she would stay there waiting for him, right? So this is a little bit of a conditional situation here. We are, instead of using the present or the past, we are saying that somebody said that they would do something, right? They would do something for somebody else, or they would do something depending on somebody else, right? Depending on this other person, because she's waiting for this other person, right? Mary said that she would stay there waiting for him. Fantastic. Perfect, perfect. There's no formula for reported speech, guys, right? Reported speech is really depending on the situation, depending on the people talking. If it's something that'll happen in the future, right? My mom told me she will buy me a new computer for Christmas, right? You can use the future, it doesn't matter. You're talking about what somebody said in the past about something. It could be the past, it could be the present, it could be the future, the conditional, whatever, right? So you guys are all using these types of examples. Mary said that she would stay there waiting for him. Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. The same sentence, right? Okay, last but not least, Maud, would you please give us an example with the back shift, please, using that?
Okay. She said that she didn't do her homework yet.
Fantastic. She said that she didn't do her homework yet, right? We're keeping it in the past tense. Makes sense, right? Great job. Any questions about this stuff, guys?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
If I want to use back shift to say in the reported speech, I can say without that.
You can say it without that also, but let's hear an example. What did you have in mind?
My patient asked me what medicines she could take for cold.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, right? So would that be the example of an indirect reported speech or direct reported speech?
Indirect.
So it's direct if you say it like this, right? My patient asked me, what medicines can I take for the cold, right? So if you use the patient's direct words, then it becomes direct speech, right? However, if you're just telling, maybe you're telling Eka, maybe you're telling me, right? My patient asked me what medicines she should take for the cold, or she could take for the cold. Yeah, right? Well, what would that be? Would that be direct or indirect?
Indirect.
Fantastic, fantastic. Really, the difference when we're speaking is not that easy because people are speaking all the time. But if you use quotation marks in writing, then we would use the direct speech, right? Servet, is it freezing bad for you also? Can you hear us?
It is really breaking up here. Out of,
do you guys see the same thing? Oh, Lynn also sees the same thing.
No,
I don't know.
Okay.
Marcelo's okay. Maud, is it okay for you? Eugenie also, you guys?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Okay for me.
All right. Yeah, Servet, I don't know, guys. Servet and Lynn, maybe it's Google Hangouts. I think they are having problems, Google Hangouts. Yesterday, I couldn't log on to Google Hangouts for the longest time. Very difficult for me. I actually missed a class because Google Hangouts was not working. So, okay, guys. Any other questions about this stuff? Reported speech, backshift, indirect, direct. No questions?
No question.
Okay, fantastic, guys. So then, the next part of our class, guys, we are going to look at an interesting article about fast food, or junk food, I should say, junk food, right? And some countries, Mexico in particular, is now starting to tax junk food, right? They are putting higher taxes on foods that are unhealthy for people, and we will see.
Just one more question.
Yeah, go ahead, Marcelo.
One question about report speech.
Sure.
I put a sentence here. Carlos said tomorrow we'll travel to São Paulo. Yeah, and Carlos said that he would travel to São Paulo. When I put a would, I'm talking about the future.
Yeah.
In this case,
yeah.
Carlos said that he would travel to São Paulo.
The meaning of these two sentences is exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah, will and would in this case are both for the future. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great job. No. De nada. Okay, so let's take a look, guys. So at this article, right? Mexico is now taxing junk food, right? Should this be something that other countries do? I don't know. I think it's a good idea, but we'll see, right? So let's take a look here. The article is on yahoo.com. The link is right here, guys, and then let's get started. So I'm going to screen share as well. All right. Mexico lawmakers back tax on junk food and pet treats. Okay. Mexico City. Mexico's lower house, this is their house in their Congress, right? So they have two big parts of their parliament. This is a lower house. Mexico's lower house has approved a disputed fiscal reform plan that includes taxes on sugary drinks, junk food, and pet treats to boost government revenue in Latin America's second economy. President Enrique Peña Nieto has pushed the legislation, which would raise taxes on high earners to improve the country's lackluster tax collection, one of the lowest in the region. But soft drink firms and other businesses have criticized the proposed taxes as bad for the economy, taking out advertisements in newspapers to oppose the legislation. The Chamber of Deputies approved the general outline of the bill 317 to 164 late Thursday and voted on the details early Friday. It now goes to the Senate. The reform was backed by Peña Nieto's Institutional Revolutionary Party, PRI, and the leftist Democratic Revolution Party, PRD. The Conservative National Action Party, PAN, opposed it. The legislation includes levies are taxes, aimed at reducing obesity in Mexico, which rivals the United States for the dubious title of world's fattest nation, with 71% of the population overweight. Oh my God. Right? Mexico and the United States are both in the similar area. 71% of the population are overweight. Outrageous, outrageous. Peña Nieto wants Mexicans to pay an extra peso, almost 8 US cents, for every liter of sweetened drink in a country that guzzles more sodas than any other. Mexico drinks more soda than any other country, right? So now this new tax will add an extra peso, 8 US cents for every liter, right? Soft drink makers have dubbed the levy the Bloomberg tax, naming it after New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, whose plan to ban giant soft drinks from restaurants in the city was rejected by an appeals court in July. The lawmakers also passed a tax on high-calorie junk food that was not in Peña Nieto's reform plan, right? It would impose a 5% sales tax on foods with at least 275 kilocalories per 100 grams, including snacks, sweets, chocolate, flan, peanut butter, and ice cream, right? The legislation will also increase the sales tax in border cities from 11% to 16%, on par with the rest of the country, raising concerns among businesses dependent on economic ties with the neighboring United States, right? The sales tax would apply to processed foods for dogs, cats, and other pets, as well as chewing gum. So they're not just looking at obesity of humans, they're looking at obesity of animals also, of pets, right? Dogs, cats, and other pets. And with all of this information, right, this would also tax people that are making more than $234,000 a year. So the very rich in Mexico, right, the very rich in Mexico will also be taxed. And taxes in Mexico are actually, until this point, taxes are very low in Mexico compared to the rest of Latin America. It's only 13.7% of their GDP, of their gross domestic product. And usually in other Latin American countries, it's 18.4%. So it's a lot higher in other Latin American countries, right? But what do you guys think about this? Do you guys like the idea of taxing junk food, you know, ice cream and soda? I mean, if your country had the title of fattest country in the world or second fattest country in the world, it's not a good thing to have, right? So it's bringing you money, maybe it's making your people healthy. Do you think it's a good idea? Servet, let's start with you, please.
What do I think about the article?
Yeah, about these taxing all this junk food and all the soda.
Actually, yeah. I don't agree with the idea of making some products unavailable for people to get rid of some problems. Like if you have traffic jam, increase taxes and increase the increase the price of cars so that it will be available to some specific classes. That you will get rid of traffic jam. This is not a good solution for solve the problems. If you don't want people to drink unhealthy products, you don't have to increase the taxes. You can regulate production of this food. If they are putting too much sugar, and if you think it's unhealthy, you can bring a limit. The companies won't be able to put more sugar than the limit you define. It is kind of indirect way of increasing taxes and taking advantage of the situation, in my opinion.
I think that's a very, very solid point, Servet, right? Do you think the motivation for these politicians is as much money as it is the health of the people?
Maybe they are using the health issues to increase taxes. I don't find. We have the same mindset here. If you have the problem, you either forbid them or you make it available to specific classes so that you get rid of the problem. It is not a solution. Educate people, regulate companies so that they will produce more healthy products. I don't know, do something else, but I mean, it's not a good way of governing the country. Bring more restrictions.
That's a very good point, Servet. Fantastic point. I really like all the points you said, right? Especially because maybe you have experience with it in Turkey. Has it worked in Turkey at all, these kinds of things? Like increasing the taxes, they've solved the problem, or they haven't really solved the problem. They've only made these things unavailable to maybe poor people, right?
Yes.
So it's the same situation.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, government's mission is to increase life standards and increase life standards of everybody. So when you increase taxes of using, for example, cars or homes, you are not increasing standards of people. You are making life more difficult to people. People won't be able to buy a home if you make it too expensive just so that you can make more taxes. This is not government's mission.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely, sir. I cannot agree more. I think that's a very valid point of view. What about Eugenie? Eugenie, do you think the same way, or do you agree with this policy? Will it help? Will it hurt?
I think that the only result that they can have by this taxing program is they can increase the prices on this junk food, and that's all. But I don't know, will the people buy it in this case?
I mean, will that really solve the problem, though, Eugenie? I mean, maybe let's say before you could buy junk food, right? Because it was cheap. Mm-hmm. Now if you're still, you need that chocolate bar, man, I need to get it, right? I mean, what are you going to do? You might actually start going to other sources. People might start making this stuff in their homes. You buy some sugar, you buy some whatever, you still make whatever, right? I mean, I guess that's up to each person. Yeah. But I guess maybe what will happen is if things get forbidden or if things become hard to reach, they'll start to make a black market for these things.
I think that mostly people buy junk food because it's cheap. It's cheap and fast.
It's cheap and fast. Uh-huh.
And when it will be cost more expensive, I think that people would be buy something another.
But do you think just increasing the prices is the best solution, or should they also, maybe from the money that they're making from these sales, they should also educate people? They should say, listen, this is why we banned fast food and why we made junk food so bad, right? They should, I mean, educating the public, listen, this is very bad for you. Look at what this does to your body. Look at how this destroys your health, right? That might also be a very meaningful way to get people to just boycott these products. I
don't know. I think that people already know that, but
they still do it.
Huh?
But they still do it.
But they still do it because of lack of time and other things.
Yeah, no, it's a good point of view, right? Sometimes the reality is just that even if you are maybe trying your best, you might not be able to get that information to the people, right? Or the people will just not want to hear that information. Lynn, what do you think about this?
Well, when I read this article, I see that the main purpose, there are two main purposes of taxing junk food, raising tax and reduce the amount of obesity. However, regarding to the raising tax for government, actually I don't have comment for this issue. However, related to the issue that the government want to reduce the percentage of obesity, I think it's not unfair because when the government tax on junk food. So what about the fast food such as pizza and chicken fingers? So whether or not they also be taxed by government? I just confused a bit about this problem.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, right? It seems that they're focusing on just part of the problem, right, and not the whole problem, right? They're saying that they will tax the junk food, maybe the chocolate, the cookies, the candy, the ice cream that you can buy in stores, right? They will tax those things, but it's not saying anything about the already established restaurants and fast food, places, yes. McDonald's and things like that, right? So maybe honestly, Lynn, maybe they're doing it as a two-step process, right? New York City, I'll give you a good example. New York City is one of the only cities in the world where they are very strict when it comes to health regulations, right? So, for example, no restaurant in New York City can use saturated fat, oil in their food. They have to use 100% non-fat oil, unsaturated fat in their oil. So imagine all the restaurants, the hundreds, maybe thousands of restaurants, not just restaurants, anybody who sells anything on the street. If you're walking up and down New York City, you see the guy selling hot dogs or selling rice and chicken from his cart, right? All of those guys, if they are registered businesses with the city of New York, they must use unsaturated fat in their oil. They cannot have fatty oil. So New York City started tackling the problem. They went for something that affects everybody who cooks, right? Oil. Oil affects anybody. If you want to cook something, you have to use oil. So all the restaurants, all the people on the street, they must use oil with no fat, right? So maybe Mexico is trying something a little bit different. They want to maybe tackle, approach half of the problem first, and then approach the other half later. Maybe that's their reason. Although I don't know, honestly, the situation if that's what's actually happening there or not, right? Sometimes you have to take problems and break them up into smaller pieces before you can find solutions. So maybe that's what it is. But what about you, Marcelo? What do you think about the situation? Is it good to tax junk food and increase, soda taxes?
Yeah, I think to make money is the main reason, for them.
Making money is the main reason for them, right?
Yeah. To help the people if they're healthy, I think it's not possible. It's a little possible,
Mm-hmm.
They know that this kind of drink are selling so much, so they are gonna take the opportunity to raise the tax. More sales, more billing for the governments.
Mm-hmm.
That's my point of view.
But what should they spend this money on? If I was in the Mexican government, I would say, for example, let's use this money that we are making to educate people about bad health, bad choices, right? I mean, is that a good idea, or do you think they're going to use the money for this?
Yeah, I agree, but sometimes they promise a lot of things,
Yeah.
They promise that they will raise the tax to putting in other, for instance, let's raise the tax with this kind of food and put it education, put it on education. Let's put it on security system. So they don't do it. It's happening in Brazil. It's happening in Brazil. So,
people are making false promises. Politicians are always making false promises, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, guys. I mean, I don't know, I mean, it's like Servet, I really liked your opinion, What would you say about this money from taxes? Do you think they should use this? How should they use this money if they're making so much money?
I think they might use it in education, but I don't think they will do these things. And I say this by looking at the other laws they have just passed, like increasing taxes of richer people. It shows us that the economy isn't going well, so they are looking for new resources to make money. Because this might be the main reason, so that they will use the money for other things if the country has some debt or some sort of
other payments they need to make, right?
Yes.
Yeah, all those kinds of things. No, that's awesome, Servet. Glad to hear that our point of views, a lot of us seem to share the same ideas about this. And Maud, what do you think about this whole article about taxing and all that kind of stuff?
I think it might be the good solution for this country because 7% of overweight, very high. people will more concerned when they choose something to eat. But I don't think it will help the rich people because they have a lot of money to buy something in the expensive price. But for poor people or moderate income, I think it can reduce the frequency to buy fast food or something bad for their health.
Yeah, rich people will continue to buy whatever they want, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it might not stop them from doing anything, right? Yeah, no, that makes sense, guys. I think that's a good way to think about it. But the last question I have for you guys is, do you guys think that maybe other countries will follow this idea? Mexico is probably the closest country to the United States in terms of food habits. Or Canada also maybe. I mean, I don't know. The fast food culture is spreading everywhere in the world, right? Would something like this help reduce obesity in your home countries? Would you guys say this would help? Let's start with Maud. Do you think this would help in Thailand, Maud, if there was a tax like this?
No, I don't like it because I think in Thailand we don't have a lot of obese people, and I think nowadays our cost living is so high when we compare with our salaries. It's not good to raise the price up. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's very fair, right? It's very fair. We don't want to raise the price on folks who are, who don't deserve that kind of. I mean, I don't know ultimately if anybody deserves to have prices increased, but if the society as a whole is facing a crisis, like 70% overweight, 7 out of 10 people in the country are overweight.
Yeah, I agree that if Thailand has 70% of overweight, I agree. But I agree with you that Thai politicians are always making false promises.
I think it's the same everywhere in the world, except for Brazil. Brazil has the most honest politicians, right, Marcelo?
Oh.
No, I'm joking, Maud. I'm joking, Maud. They don't. They don't. So, Marcelo, last question for you, Marcelo. Do you think this would help in Brazil if people are drinking soda and people are gaining weight? Would something like this help?
Do you think I didn't understand your question.
Would something like this tax help in Brazil to reduce people drinking soda, buying junk food, or would it actually hurt Brazil, do you think?
So are you asking me if I think that putting up the tax will help people?
Yeah, let's say Brazil. I mean, you're in Brasilia, right? Let's say the Brazilian government says, okay, guys, we're going to have a tax. We're going to start taxing soda. We're going to start taxing ice cream, all this stuff. Do you think it would help people in Brazil, or would people in Brazil get angry because of that?
Yeah, I think people will get angry because we have already paid a lot of tax here in Brazil, And as I said yesterday here in class, they don't do anything
with the money, right? With all those taxes.
Yeah, with the money. Yeah, they don't divert. They don't divert the money for where they said that they would put this money.
Yeah.
They usually to say that let's raise the tax, as I said here before. Let's raise the tax for this stuff, and put the money of this tax on the education. but they do they doesn't do it. They don't do it. You know.
Yeah, really sad, really sad. But thanks, Marcelo, for sharing that opinion. Lynn, would it help in Vietnam, like a tax like this?
In my country, honestly, we prefer spending money to teach people how to make good choice for their health much more than taxing junk foods or other kind of foods. So I think this one will be a long-term remedy for my country.
Yeah, right. I really like that idea. Vietnam uses their money to teach people how to make healthy choices, right? I think that's really good. Last but not least, Eugenie, would you like to share? Do you think this would work in Russia? I don't think Russian people are very obese. I don't think it's as bad as Mexico and the United States, but
yeah. But I think it will help to struggle with obesity. But in case when we will have the price on the, let's say, soda equals with the juice.
When we have the, I'm sorry, Eugenie, could you repeat the last part? When we have the price?
When we will have the price on the soda equals with the juice.
So it would be something, I think, I mean, maybe I think in Russia, honestly, something that might contribute more to the unhealthy might be alcohol.
Yeah, definitely.
I think but then I think if the Russian politicians say we are going to start taxing vodka, there would be a social revolution.
Maybe.
Right?
I don't know.
Right? Because I think more than fast food, I think Russians love to drink. So a lot of vodka, a lot of alcohol, right? So anyway, guys, it was so nice to have you guys in class. Unfortunately, I need to head out soon. I have to go somewhere. But did you guys have any questions about reported speech or about any of this stuff that we mentioned today? Looking at fast food, junk food. Any questions? Any concerns? Any ideas? Any thoughts?
Maybe the next class we will have for us.
Yeah, no problems, guys. I always look forward to your classes. Eugenie, thank you so much for joining both of my classes this morning.
Bye-bye, teacher. See you.
Absolutely, guys. Awesome. Well, have a great rest of the day, guys. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you for the class.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye. Take care. I was trying to speak very basic Turkish and telling people where I needed to go. But, I mean, I saw the countryside. I saw Izmit and other cities on my way to Bursa. But anyway, it's good to see you again, Sarah. Welcome to class.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, Eugenie, you're here too. Welcome back.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. So today, guys, we have an interesting class planned, right? I like the classes in which we talk about reported speech, okay? Reported speech is going to be the theme of our conversation today. And the way we use reported speech in English, right, the way I like to think of it is, imagine you're watching a news report on TV, or imagine you're reading a newspaper, right? Whenever we read the news, we hear about what other people say, right? News is really just a combination of information that other people say, right? Hey, Marcelo, welcome to the Beleza, Professor.
Hello?
Hey, Marcelo, can you hear us?
Yes, I think I was with problems with my connection here.
No problem, no problem. Welcome back. Tudo beleza?
Tudo beleza.
Senin dersini kaçırmak istemedim.
I don't know that last part.
I said just a little bit tired, maybe but I didn't want to miss your class.
Welcome. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, sir. You know, I heard about the new tunnel, Marmaray Tunnel, that is now connecting Istanbul. Yeah.
Yes, I guess they've been building it for a long time. probably. I haven't read about it.
Yeah. It looks very exciting. I mean, now I think they reduced the travel time between two parts of Istanbul from 120 minutes or 2 hours or something like that to just 15 minutes.
Yes, it's connecting the two continents.
Yeah, Europe and Asia.
Yeah, Europe and Asia is pretty good because we have two bridges and they are really crowded.
Hmm.
It gets really crowded.
Absolutely,
Hopefully,
yeah. So, yes. Hopefully this one will. Do you think this will reduce the traffic, Sarah?
of course it will, because two bridges aren't enough.
Tudo bem, graças a Deus.
Gracias a Dios.
Yeah,
De nada,
graças
de
a
nada,
Deus.
de nada a Dios, de nada a Dios.
Hmm.
Awesome. Well, welcome. So we are just beginning to talk, guys, about reported speech, right? So reported speech in general, when we think of the news is really just a combination of what other people say about different things in life, right? The president says this, the secretary says that, the minister said that, the mother said this, the father said this, whatever, right? So reported speech is used a lot in the news, and it's used a lot in normal conversation also, right? What did your mom tell you? Well, my mom said, make sure you go to sleep by 7 p.m. I don't know, maybe it's a younger child, right? Something like that. So when we see those kinds of situations, right, we can use reported speech to identify what people say about different kinds of plans that they have, or what people tell each other, right? What people say to each other, what people tell each other, right? So I want to start the conversation, guys, by looking at a question, right? Tell me about something that someone recently told you. So
Talking about report speech, my boring neighbor stopped with the
The same as usual.
yeah, I know. I asked the same questions. Today, it's raining here a lot. So I was thinking about you saying how there's no typhoon, but here it seems like we have a typhoon today. Yeah.
Maybe move to your place.
I know. It's kind of crazy. I mean, it was raining pretty heavy, I think, all night, and now it's getting a little bit calmer. Yeah. If it was a little bit colder, it would be snow. So I'm really happy that it's not snow. Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Servet. Hoş geldiniz.
Hey.
Nasılsınız?
Teşekkürler, iyiyiz. Ya siz?
İyiyim, teşekkürler abi.
Nice. It is good to hear Turkish. You are the only foreign person speaking Turkish, specifically a Western American.
Uh-huh. I know. I like to. I love Turkish. Çok seviyorum. Türkçe çok seviyorum. Türkçe çok seviyorum. Aha.
Türkçeyi çok seviyorum.
Türkçeyi çok seviyorum. Evet. Orada nasıl gidiyor?
İyi gidiyor. Biraz yorgunuz ama and a new route. They were also talking about building a third bridge. I mean, because it's a crowded route, it's a common route. A lot of people travel from one continent to another.
Yeah.
Daily, some people go to travel. So they needed to do it.
I remember when I was there, we had to wait. We took a ferry from Istanbul to Bursa, but Yeni Kapı feribot istasyonu. Yeah, and Ido I think is the name of the service. But it was luxurious. I loved the ferry. Had I known about the ferry before I arrived to Istanbul, I would have definitely just always taken the ferry. But because I didn't know about it, the first time I took a bus, and it was a nightmare. It was 7 hours to go from Istanbul to Bursa. I was on the bus for, it felt like a millennium. It felt so long on the bus, and I didn't know any Turkish. That was my first day in Turkey, my very first day. So I was on this bus, and nobody knew English, so I was saying